Call if you're out there. It's 866-980-0499. And Richard's going to answer this phone and find out if anything's happening. And
right, is it a tax question?
Good. We got a live tax question here. Well, real estate question. Well, I'll happily take this question, and Richard's going to switch his mic, and we'll go for it. And are they there? Go ahead. What's the question, sir or ma'am?
Hi, David. First-time caller.
Yes.
I got a real estate question for you. I live in Saskatchewan, and for about the last 3 years, I bought a house and lived in it. And about 4 months ago, I bought a new home, kept the old house as rental property, but I'm considering selling the old house. Is it still possible to sell that house as a primary residence?
Well, the answer is real simple. Okay, there's a form called a T2091. You actually sent this to me in writing, and I sent you back one and said phone the program, I think, did I not?
Yes, you did.
You did, okay. I get 60, sometimes 60 questions a day. I can't answer them all in writing. Have you got a piece of paper and a pen, though?
Yes.
Okay, this will be archived after, but you have to fill in a form called a T2091 to claim the property as a principal residence. And the T2091 asks when you bought it and how many years you had it, and how many years are you designating. So you said you bought it in 2005?
Or about 6.
Okay.
Yeah, probably 6.
Well, let's pretend you bought it in about 2006. So you would designate it 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. And what happens is you then get 2000, when you do the formula, it's 4 plus 1. It would be, you get whatever number of years it is plus 1 over top of the number of years that you've owned it. So in your case, it would be absolutely tax-free at this moment, provided you sell it this year.
Okay.
Now, if you sell it next year, you're still going to get it because it's plus 1. When you go to sell the house that you moved into, so provided you sell this house in that 1 year period, you will find that the other house, the next house you're buying, is going to be tax-free too, because when you do the formula, it's going to be plus 1. Now, if you leave the house rented for 1.5 years or 2 years, and you get into, this is 2009, you rent it out for 2009, all of 2010, part of 2011, you're then going to end up in one or the other of the houses being taxable, because you're going to lose your plus 1. You're going to have an overriding factor, right?
Okay.
So if you did it if you sold it in 2011, then you'd be designating it for 2006, 7, 8, 9, and you get those 4 years plus 1 is 5, but you've owned it for 6, so you'd be paying tax on 5/6 of the profit, or paying tax on 1/6 of the profit. But you got to look at Form T2091, and if you look at Form T2091, it will show you the calculation that you have to do. Now, where are you in Saskatchewan?
Saskatoon.
Saskatoon. I lived in Saskatoon very briefly, but I used to own a coffee house there called the Louis Riel Coffee House years and years and years ago. You're not old enough to remember, but it was where Joni Mitchell, for instance, used to sing there. She was Joni Anderson at the time, before she married Cliff Mitchell, and she would be walking down Broadway in her black leathers with a guitar swung over her back, and there was all sorts of things. No Saskatoon well. Went to St. Andrews College there, and was a brief partner with a guy named Bill Gulf in Gulf Steakhouse, if you remember that. If you don't, your parents will.
No, not at all.
Anyway, that's it. Look up Form T2091, and if you sell it any time between now and the end of December 2010, it will be tax-free.
Before 2010.
Yep.
All right. I thank you very much, sir.
But, you know, if you can afford to keep it, my experience is that over the number of years, you'll find that that's a good investment for you.
It's a smaller single-family dwelling, so at this point it doesn't really cash flow as well.
Yeah. What street is it on?
It's over by the exhibition.
Okay. If you've got a better use for the money, whatever you do, make sure that if you do get money out of it, you use that money to pay down the house that you bought now, because your mortgage isn't deductible the way it is. And if you go to my website, www.senta.com, I shouldn't say my website, Richard's website, he's laughing his head off. You know, our website, if you type income tax experts into Google, we come up today number 1 out of 22 million people in the world.
Yeah.
And the only reason we've got the website really is because he sort of put it together for me and made it happen. And, you know, we're number 1 in a whole bunch of categories. And, but it's technically, I guess it's my website, but it's registered in Richard's name. And it's sort of fun.
Josie surprised?
Well, it was actually quite funny because when I was in the middle of a divorce and the subject of the ownership of the website came up, it turned out that it wasn't mine, and if it had any value, it couldn't be attached in the divorce thing, so it was actually sort of fun. Anyway, making a long story short, handshake deals are great. If you go to that website, though, and you click on the top left-hand side on newsletters and read the November 2001 newsletter, it'll show you how to make your mortgage deductible. Or give you some hints.
November 2001?
November 2001, yeah. Or March 1987, it's up there too, but the 2001 is a little bit newer. And if you read that newsletter, it'll give you some different ideas how to make your mortgage deductible. And you can always get hold of Fraser Smith's book, The Smith Maneuver. And I found that people that don't understand the Smith Maneuver, if they read mine, put the two of them together in their head and it works. Because he attacks the subject from one way and I attack it from another direction. People who read mine and can't really get motivated, then buy his book and read his book, and the two of them together make you do it. What have you got, a $100,000 mortgage or $200,000 mortgage?
Actually, I remortgaged it to buy my new house and actually an additional rental property.
Okay, well, the remortgaging money that you borrowed on the rental house is not, that part of the interest is not deductible against the rental house. You recognize that, right? It isn't deductible. If somebody told you it was deductible because you put the mortgage on the rental house, I assure you it is not. There's 2 tax cases, the Holman case and the Huber case, that absolutely show where the judges, the courts have ruled against it. So read that mortgage, and Bulletin IT 533 is also the one that the government's issued on making mortgage or making interest deductible or when interest is deductible. But if you borrow money on a rental house to buy a house to live in, pardon?
What was that number?
Bulletin IT 533. Okay, and that's the government bulletin on interest as a deduction. And the 2 books you might want to read, as I say, are the book you might want to read is Fraser Smith's The Smith Maneuver and my November 2001 newsletter. But I assure you, the interest on the money you borrowed on the rental house is not to pay down on the house that you bought or for the down payment, is not deductible. It's what the money was used for, not where the mortgage is. If you had a paid-for house right now and you borrowed money on the paid-for house and used it to buy a rental property, the interest is deductible. But if you borrow money on the rental house to buy a summer cabin or to buy yourself a pleasure boat or buy a new car or a motorcycle so you can just go cruising around, that interest is not deductible even though it's registered against the rental house.
Really?
Really. Okay, I can tell you had the wrong information, so.
But do you say the interest on my primary house, that if I borrowed against that for rental property?
If you borrow money on the primary house to go and buy a rental property, that interest is deductible. Somebody who knows what they're doing has to sit down and take a look at your borrowings to make sure that they're right. See, what you can do is you have a line of credit on your house that you live in, and you borrow and you take all the rents that come in from your rental houses, and you pay them down on the line of credit for the mortgage that was used to buy the house. And then you put another second line of credit on, and when you need money to pay the expenses, whether it's fix a roof or pay the property taxes or even make the mortgage payments on the rental house, if you use your primary house as security and borrow the money and it goes into those positions, then that is absolutely deductible. And that's worth a fortune to you. So a good phone call. All right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I opened, I guess I was actually the original H&R Block. Richard Martin opened H&R Block 1967, I guess. 68. We opened H&R Block in Saskatoon, too.